This video is devoted to the description of some basic properties of Rn as a norm space. So we just start with the usual definition of a norm, which does not really depend on the fact that we are on Rn. You have the three basic properties, which are positivity, homogeneity, and the triangular inequality. An important consequence of these axioms is the following: geometry property of the open balls. They are always an open set, but more notably, they are symmetric with respect to the origin. This is due to the homogeneity, and they are convex. So convex, this is just because you have the norm of lambda x plus 1 minus lambda y in norm, which is always smaller than lambda norm of x plus 1 minus lambda norm of y if lambda is between 0 and 1. So just this says that the balls are always convex. And for example, this gives you a basic criterion to decide if something can be a ball with respect to a norm or not. So for example, this set here is indeed something which is convex, but obviously it is not symmetric with respect to the origin, therefore it can be a ball for any norm. Okay, so for examples of basic norms on Rn, you have the Euclidean norm, which is the most important one. It is associated, of course, to a scalar product. But there are some other norms. So, for example, the subnorm, which is the max of the absolute value of the xi, and the L1 norm, which is the sum of the xi. Okay, and more generally, since you have some unity between these norms, you can also define the LP norm, which is the sum of the xi to the power p, all of this to the power 1 over p. So the fact that this is a norm is actually not obvious, and you should see the chapter on the LP of n spaces for a more general description of this norm. So now for some more geometric properties, we say that two norms are equivalent if you have the following chain of inequality. So there is a basic consequence about this fact, which is that if you have n1 of x which is smaller than 1, then you have n2 of x which is smaller than C2 n1 of x, which is smaller than 1. And of course, this gives you some inclusion between balls, which are summarized here. So you have the first inequality that I have just written implies that the ball of center 0 and radius 1 for the n1 norm is included in the ball of center 0 and radius C2 for the n2 norm. And of course, by using the first inequality, you can also obtain the first inclusion here. So there is something which is a little bit tricky about the equivalence between these two facts, which is that here you have n1, n2, n1, and now for the inclusion of balls, you have n2, n1, n2. So we should be careful about this. And we'll see that there are some examples of norms that are explicitly equivalent. So this is the L1, L2, and L infinity norms. So you have the following chain of inequality, which is relatively elementary. First of all, the max of x1, x2 is of course smaller than x1 to the square plus x2 to the square. This is an obvious inequality. Then the second inequality is just obtained by doing the multiplication here. You obtain x1 to the square plus x2 to the square plus 2 absolute value of x1, x2. So you have also the second inequality. And finally, for the last one, you can simply notice that x1 is smaller than max of x1, x2. x2 is smaller also than max of x1, x2. Therefore, you obtain this inequality with 4 here, which is just 2 to the square. Okay, so this chain of inequality exactly means when you take the square root of everything, that the norm of x infinity is smaller than the norm of x for the L2 norm, which is smaller than the norm of x in the L1 norm. And finally, when you take the square root of 4, you obtain the last thing here. So geometrically, this means that exactly you have this chain of inclusion, but maybe this will be more clear if you look at some animation of this. Okay, so we'll draw some balls. So here is the first one. This ball is the unit ball for the Euclidean norm. This is the ball for the L2 norm. Now, the second one, here, this is the ball for the L infinity norm, because you have two conditions. You must have x1 smaller than 1 and x2 smaller than 1, which gives you the two lines that appear here, and by symmetry, you get the two other lines. And next, this ball here is the ball for the L1 norm, and this is also the unit ball. And you observe what we expected from the computations. The ball for the L1 norm is included in the ball for the L2 norm, which is included in the ball for the L infinity norm. And finally, we draw two other balls, so this one and this one. So what can we say about them? The purple one before is clearly a ball for the L2 norm with some radius, and B5 is a ball for the L1 norm for some other radius. And what we will see is that their radiuses is linked to the base constant in the norm equivalency. So this is the purpose of the following exercise, which is find the smallest c such that for any x in R2, you have the norm of x index 2, which is smaller than c times norm of x in L infinity. And the question is, once you know this constant c, how can you relate this to the radius of B4, and also how is the radius of B5 related to the other constant in the norm equivalency? Okay, and finally, we'll give a more abstract theorem that we will not prove. So far, we have seen that in R2, the L1, L2, and L infinity norms are equivalent. But actually, there is a much more general theorem, which is the following. If you are in a finite dimensional vector space, then actually all norms are equivalent. So this is the first property. And moreover, the closed ball of center 0 and radius 1 is compact. And there is something stronger than this, which is that conversely, if the ball is compact, then the dimension of E is smaller than infinity. So this is not hard to check for some special norms, but the theorem says that it is actually true always. And this ends the vidéo. Et ouais, 9:27.